Hey guys, welcome back to a new dev drawer video. Today we're going to be kind of going over the second part of me building this Crossy Road game. Last time we discussed creating the land and creating the roads and kind of making it where that dynamically creates itself as you go through the game, and it removes it so it doesn't take up a lot of space. So today we're going to be kind of going over how to build the player. Before I got it to actually look like this kind of a player, I had to start off with a cube just to kind of get placement. So I'm going to get into that now. So what I did was I just created a 1x1 cube, and I just kind of put it where I thought it would go, looking at the camera angles, and I was still getting used to how the camera worked in 3D space, so I don't know if my sizing was correct or not, but essentially I was just kind of resizing it to kind of see what my options were, how big it would get if I made it 100 by 100, but I ended up deciding to go with a little square box that to me looked pretty visible on the camera angle, but as you can see here, that whenever I go to position this next to the playing field, it is huge. So I had to reposition it a few times and resize it a few times to kind of get it to where I wanted it to be at. And again, I'm still kind of new at the whole 3D design aspect of Unity, so I'm still playing around with how to exactly put the camera where I wanted it at. But essentially this was me just kind of playing around with the camera angles again and getting it to where the box needs to be at, where I think it would look good at. And then the next part we're going to be kind of checking what it looks like compared to what we previously did, where the land moves with it and stuff like this. So I got the cube positioned where I think that the game would want to start at, and then I just kind of played around with the up key just to kind of see how the land moves with it. And as you can see here, the player's not moving, but I'll get to that in just a second whenever I go to add some animations to it. But right now I just wanted to make sure that it looks at the appropriate scale compared to everything else that we had previously built. Just kind of set up the animator to have an idle and a hop. So the idle is when he's stationary, the hop is when he's moving. And then I need to go and create the animations, and those animations for the idle is easy because he basically doesn't do anything. But for the hop, I need to make him jump up a little bit and then come back down. But in the Crossy Road game, it's a very subtle animation, so I don't want him to go up too high. And then I was playing around with the timing a little bit to try to make it where it's a smoother hop. And then I tested what it looked like, and to me it was kind of slow, so I think I needed to speed it up a little bit to make the animations a lot more smooth, because right now it doesn't really reflect what a player would look like whenever they're hopping. So I refine it a little bit, condense it down timing wise, and make it where the hop's not as tall. So it's just it's a very subtle hop is what I was going for. Very quick, very subtle. And I'm speeding it up because what I was seeing initially was that it wasn't hopping at the same time that the land was being removed, which was a bit of a worry for me, because I wanted him to stay on the path but not have the land sneak up behind him, and I didn't want to have too much in the future for the player to pop up. So I wanted it to kind of make it where the player was stationary in the screen, so you couldn't tell that there was things being removed behind him and in front of him. So now I need to actually script something for whenever you press the up key or the W key. It just goes in there and it creates this, it sets the trigger for this animator to start hopping. So what you're seeing right now is the finished code where I added in a few more things like left and right capabilities, but this part of the video, it actually has where you press the up, down, left, right keys, and it actually does those motions for you using this function that I'd created. Very simple function, just moves the character one space up or one space back, one space left or one space right. So once I got the script done, I needed to test it out. So this part right here is me coming in there and testing the player movement versus the terrain that's being generated. And as you can see, the player movement, it's generating too far in the future, which is causing the player to not be able to keep up with the terrain as it's being generated. So on here, I was just playing around with the terrain count to make sure that, you know, as he goes forward, the terrain behind him isn't being taken away too quickly. And I just made a few different adjustments based on adding a few elements, adding the max terrain and the minimum distance from the player. And I kind of got it to where it will work. There's still a few inefficiencies in how it's working because it's very close to the player right now, and sometimes it overtakes the player like it just did. So I have to play with the terrain count, and I have to play with the max distance. The max distance is important because I want him to be able to get, you know, X amount of steps away from the end before it starts taking away that one behind him. So right now I'm going in there and I'm creating the movement, and you can see that he's moving along the screen, and the terrain is filling the back and the front appropriately, so it's not removing what it doesn't need to. And I'm just adding the motions to it to let it know that, okay, so this is where we need to stop at whenever we get this close to the end of it. So I'm testing out the left and the right. You can't really tell right now unless you look at the left side of the screen that he's actually can move left and right, but he can. So I'm testing out the back and the front as well as the left and the right arrows to make sure that whenever you press those key actions actually do what they need to. But one thing that I did start to notice was the player, whenever he's moving, there starts to clip a little bit because of the way the camera was angled. So I re-angle the camera a little bit so it's a little bit more overhead, because whenever I start to make this camera follow him, it's going to keep track of everything that's happening, and if it's too low, it's going to start creating this clip where you can't really, you can see like the edge of the board happening. So right now I'm just trying to play around with the smoothness of this script, where whenever it jumps, you know, how bumpy it is whenever the camera's moving with it, and as you can see right here, it's clipping off that side. Got the camera following the player, and I have it where you can't really tell right now because there's no objects that he's going around, or there's no cars or anything like that that's moving, but the camera is actually, every time you take a hop, the camera moves with you. And I work on the smoothness of this a little bit more, where it's not as jumpy in a later video. But right now I'm just trying to go in there and test that camera angle to make sure that there's no clipping, that it starts at the right place, it ends at the right place. And then I go in here, and I think I finally got it to where I want it at. So I'm looking at the field of view to make sure that whenever he jumps, it's taking away the appropriate amount of spaces, and it's adding the appropriate amount of spaces. Right now he has a lot to work with in front of him, so as he's going through, it's going through about 1 block at a time. Like for this road, it's like 8 blocks. That's about it for this video. In the next video, we're going to go over how I was able to create some of the terrain, like the trees and the plants and everything that goes with it. But for now, I think that's going to be it. If you like this video, please subscribe, like it, comment on it. This is the first time I'm ever doing something with Unity, so I'd love to hear what you have to say. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. But if you like it, definitely hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, because I'm hoping to do another video next week, and maybe a few weeks after this as my progress goes through. But thank you for now, and I will talk to you later.